Welcome back to Eye on Foxborough. I'm Karen Guregian, and I'm thrilled to welcome WEEI's Andy Hart. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
Well, I'm good, although I know both of us were at the joint practice session yesterday. The Philadelphia Eagles were in town. It was a packed house. And I think it's good that the packed house, most of the people in the bleachers didn't see the offensive side of the ball.
Yep.
They saw the defense going up against Jalen Hurts. But anyway, I don't want to spoil your perception. But anyway, what did you see?
So I think it was by design that the defense was on the field closest to the largest group of Patriots fans in the bleachers because, you want to put your best foot forward, your best foot out there, whatever. Um,
Me
I
too.
honestly, so I've been sort of aligned with the idea that this team could win 0 games this year, and some of that's my own doing. Now, I should have realized when you bring up something like that there's a possibility. Well, people are going to say that's what you're saying. When my original comment wasn't that. My original comment was, they're most likely a 3 or a 4 win team, but that 0 wins would be in play. And everybody's like, oh, Hart said 0 wins this year for the Patriots. And it's like, okay, if you're going to think that's what I said, I might as well embrace it. So, my expectations for this team are relatively low, and they have been kind of all along just because I think it's a near impossibility to turn over the organization the way they did and like from top to bottom. New GM, new head coach, new quarterback, new culture, new paintings on the wall, new everything, and have that so swiftly turn things around and lead to winning. I think it would be unprecedented, basically. So then you get into the summer and you have Alex Van Pelt putting his offense in and for Jacoby Brissett. So you have kind of I don't want to be disrespectful, but a journeyman offensive mind and a journeyman quarterback putting in this offense, and it doesn't look great. And I thought we saw that yesterday. You didn't, even though the Patriots defense was competitive, and that's Gerard Mayo's word. He's asked everybody to compete, right? Be competitive out there. His defense certainly lived up to that. They were competitive, especially the front seven. I just thought it was so jarring almost if you're a Patriots fan to say, well, they have an MVP caliber quarterback. They have a big, good athletic offensive line, even though they lost Jason Kelsey to retirement. They have multiple receivers who can make, I mean, AJ Brown was the best player on the field, I thought. They
I
have
agree.
like, Patriots fans probably feel pretty good about Ramondre Stevenson. He's one of your better offensive players. And even on this day, well, Ramondre is probably a poor man's Saquon Barkley, who people may not even realize quite yet has joined the Eagles in that offensive attack. So I just, I thought yesterday was just sort of put it out there for all to see. I actually just posted a column. They are who they are, and they're the have-nots, and the Eagles are the haves. And I thought that was kind of put on full display yesterday. And you're right, the crowd, I don't think it was an accident that there was the biggest crowd of the year. They came to see the Eagles. People knew that that's what the Patriots used to be. The Patriots used to be the draw, the measuring stick, sort of. If you were another team, if you were the Titans or you went into joint practices with the Patriots, seeing how you measured up and like, oh, maybe we are better than we think, or maybe we're more competitive in this area because we can deal with what Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and Gronk and whoever brings to the table. Well, now the Eagles are that type of team, a top five team. And I thought the Patriots, for the most part, showed they didn't really measure up in a lot of areas.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. But I do want to ask the player who might eventually draw the crowds for the Patriots, their number 3 overall pick, Drake Maye. Um, are they putting him in the best position to succeed? Or even Jacoby Brissett? I mean, they were sacked like 15, 16, 17 times, and it was just like jarring. Nobody can succeed with that kind of offensive line. You know, if the plan was to give Drake Maye the best chance to succeed, that's what you do with your number one, your first round quarterbacks. I don't think they've quite done that.
No, they haven't. And I think it was post draft, maybe, where Elliot Wolf was asked that. And he said, yeah, we think we have a roster capable of, helping a rookie. Or I forgot the exact wording.
Yeah.
And I think everybody at the time,
Rolled their
I don't know
eye.
if they rolled their eye. Yeah, I don't know what the exact reaction was, but it was, yeah, we don't really agree with that statement. And, I was just thinking about it the way you were sort of talking about it. And like, I like to make comparisons or whatever. And it's like you have this Ferrari, you hope, in the garage that's going to run and be fun, but it's snowing out, and outside the garage, there's ruts in the mud. And you're like, yeah, I'm not sure I want to take this Ferrari out of the garage yet. And that's who they are. And I don't really think anyone is to blame per se. It's a bad situation. There's no doubt it's a less than ideal situation. But I think we all knew, again, going back to sort of unprecedented, like, you knew you needed a quarterback. So you put yourself in position to get that guy. And I love Drake Maye. I wanted Drake Maye. But you knew in taking Drake Maye, well, that eliminates a major asset to get Joe Alt or Marvin Harrison to check off the left tackle or the number one receiver. And then there weren't a lot of receivers on the market. And whatever transpired with Brandon Ayuk, at least you're still kind of kicking the tires on those opportunities. But I think we kind of knew you weren't going to be able to shop for all the groceries to go Parcellian here and make a great meal. Like, you kind of got limited ingredients in the closet right now. You're not making a 5-course meal. And that's where I do think the debate comes. Like, Drake Maye hasn't been great. I'm a Drake Maye guy, and I would love to tell you he's looked awesome, and he has not. I actually, it's funny because I've pushed back on Andy Gresh on our station has said he hasn't really liked Drake Maye's competitive fire. And I actually kind of like the way Drake Maye has carried himself. I think he's been very upbeat, like yesterday when he spoke with the media.
Yeah.
I think he's upbeat, and I think coming off a guy, and comparisons are what we do, so sorry it's going to happen, right? Like, coming off Mac Jones, who I think we found out was wound too tight. Like, that was part of the downfall, in my opinion, of Mac Jones. He was wound too tight. We saw it early. Remember when he was like punching his leg after incompletions and bad? That's probably not ideal. And I feel like Drake Maye has his air about him or whatever has been solid. Like, I'd actually like the actual performance to be a little better than I'm worried about his comportment and the way he handles himself. But no, like, the major question right now is, and you don't want to be so, I guess, I don't know if it's disrespectful to just say, well, Jacoby Brissett's the sacrificial lamb. We're going to send you out there until you can't stand up anymore, until you can't go out there. But there might be some growing truth to that. He might be that middle reliever when your bullpen is gassed, that the coach says, I need 3 innings out of you today, whether you give up 2 runs or 20 runs, you're pitching 3 innings.
He has to eat the innings, or eat the year, or take whatever
the sacks.
Take whatever abuse comes. The other thing I liked about Drake was, he was really quick. Obviously he was asked about, being sacked, and he was quick to say, I have to get the ball out quicker.
Yep.
And perhaps that was the case on a few of those occasions. And again, he hasn't been really quick making decisions in these 11-on-11. He's much better in the 7-on-7. But when you have really an actual line coming at him and no defense of a line in front of you, he just hasn't been able to, like, quickly process and get the ball out. And he acknowledged that, which I think is good.
And I think the Patriots, if you remember, that was, again, going back to Elliot Wolf draft weekend, I think both Elliot and Gerard Mayo said one of the things they really liked, or one of the final selling points, was his North Carolina team wasn't as good this year, and he had to answer a lot of questions, and they felt a lot of reporters kept trying to get him to make excuses, point fingers, and he wouldn't do it. And I wonder if, not that they wanted to, acknowledge that they were going to have some of that this year, but his ability to
They
handle that.
foresaw that, yes, yeah.
Yeah, so, that, truth be told, is probably part of the overall package of him that they liked, because as much as we think every quarterback should do that, and every quarterback that comes with the position, and you take the bullets and be the fall guy, we've seen guys over the years that point fingers and subtly or not subtly throw the linemen under the bus or the receivers under the bus.
Right. Or
So,
we've seen wives throw receivers under the
right. So, my overall feeling on Drake Maye is, yes, he's behind where I'd hoped he would be in my mind. And again, this is in my mind as a Drake Maye fan, a Drake Maye. I wanted him to start sooner rather than later. I've started to realize maybe it needs to be later rather than sooner. I've kind of flipped that around in my mind because, training camp from a public perspective is over. They had 14 practices. We watched them all. There's still practices in preseason between now and the regular season, but a big chunk of his summer, his opportunity is gone.
Yeah. And that learning, well, he's still going to learn, but like in that type of competitive situation.
Right. Which is why I know it was everybody. I'm not alone, which is why I was disappointed that he didn't play more against the Panthers. I thought that was a get the bat off your shoulder, take a few swings opportunity against a bad roster that rested like 30 of its best players. Like, give him those reps that you can never get back. And it's great that he got reps against the Eagles, but those are harder reps. Those are tougher learning. And that's why I wanted him to play a little more last Thursday night as opposed to just this week.
I know there are those that say, well, okay, they're afraid of putting him in front of the second team offensive line, but I'm not sure the first team offensive line is that much better, especially against an Eagles team that really has a ferocious pass rush.
Absolutely. And that's where, and that pass rush was dominant yesterday. Those big guys inside, Jordan Davis, they're remarkable. They are unique talents. And I know you won't face that every week, but you're going to face good defensive tackles, good pass rushers every week. The one needle I think they might try to thread this week on Thursday night is the idea of maybe the Eagles pull their defensive front a series earlier, and can we get Drake Maye out there with his number one offensive line? Although I'm with you, I don't know how big the difference is between 1 and 2 on the offensive line other than center and right guard. And maybe get him some first unit reps against the Eagles backups on defense. I think that might be a ideal situation if you can kind of manipulate the scenario to make that happen.
I think what was also alarming about the line, we know, they have nothing at tackle right now.
Right.
But the Eagles were actually, Michael Wenu didn't have the best day yesterday. City Sao, who I think is serviceable. He's good, at the guard position. Both of them struggled yesterday. So it's like, oh my God, it's just not, it's not just the tackle, but I'm willing to give them a benefit of the doubt. They could have had a bad day and the Eagles could be just that good.
Yep.
Is there a fix for the offensive line, or are they going to have to continue shuffling around? My thought, again, I think you can make up for not having one or having a less than spectacular tackle on one side. You can't make up for both sides. And I know they've resisted this, but Michael Wenu is their best offensive lineman. Maybe he is all world at guard, but he's not bad. Put it this way, he's not bad at tackle, and he's better than anything that you have. So I'm thinking, okay, if you stick him at right tackle, at least that's one position there you don't have to worry about. I like what I've seen from Layden Robinson, the rookie guard. So maybe you stick him next to Michael Onwenu on that side, and then whoever the best of the rest is at left tackle, go with it.
Yeah, I agree with you philosophically, but I do think it's interesting. So Bill Belichick was hesitant over the last couple of years to bump Mike Onwenu out to tackle. And then it seemed it worked when he did it, that Onwenu showed he could, you're right. Maybe he's not all world, but he can at least compete out there and be okay, representative of the position. And now it's funny because we have a totally new regime. Scott Peters, the O-line coach, Alex Van Pelt, and they all seem to want to put Mike Onwenu at guard. It's like us laymen on the outside see one thing, and the experts on the inside seem to see something totally different. But I kind of agree with you. You paid him, and he's your best player. And I also think there's a chance I'm more comfortable with whoever the guards are that would then get more opportunities when he bumps out than I am with the tackles that are out there. But they just seem so hesitant to do it. And because somebody from the organization told me a while ago, because I brought up the name in the offseason to somebody. I said, well, can Onwenu play left tackle? And they laughed and said 31 other teams would play him at guard. We're the only team that would play him at right tackle, never mind left tackle. So, the scouting report on Mike, and that's where there is a little question there in terms of the offensive line play and this idea they want to be a zone running team. And generally zone blockers are more athletic and kind of can move as one unit. And Onwenu is a little bit bigger and more powerful. I actually think Layden, the guard out of,
Robert.
he is also a bigger guy. And it's like Cole Strange isn't out there. He's supposed to be one of your athletic guards. So there's even beyond the talent level, there's even some fit questions with some of these linemen up front to what they want to do offensively. But I also go back to Brady's feeling, and I do wonder if they think we're going to have some issues on the line. But if we can be good up the middle and give the quarterbacks a chance up the middle, well, you're athletic enough to figure it out on the edges by yourself, kind of thing. And Brady always said that. He didn't want pressure up the middle. I can deal with Bosa. I can sidestep, or I can get rid of the ball quickly. I can't deal with pressure up the middle. And I wonder if there's a little bit of an aspect of that to it where they're, especially if Drake Maye gets out there, listen, we're trying to give you safety up the middle. You need to be an athlete and deal with some of these edge guys.
It's interesting what you said about like a scheme fit for the offensive line and them wanting the more athletic guys to fit with the zone run scheme.
Yep.
Well, then why did they draft Layden Robinson?
I
mean, it's just like, they had Mike Onwenu in the previous regime. So that's what you have. But the new guys you're bringing in, do they all fit?
And that's where some people, I think, are already questioning, are you running the right scheme? But this is the scheme you get with Alex Van Pelt, right? Like, this is his Cleveland Browns. This is the way they do business. I don't know if and I don't know that you want to pull the plug. The one way to probably make this summer worse is to pull the plug on something major like that now and look even less prepared and less competent. And I don't know how that would play out.
Let me bring up another nitpick, I guess. When you draft a quarterback in the first round, I've seen this, Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, you try to fit the offense around the quarterback. You try to fit the pieces around the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They knew they were taking a quarterback, but it seems like they're trying to have him fit into the system as opposed to the other way around.
And I think there's some truth to that. And again, I think some of that is Alex Van Pelt is who he is. And we can go back into, he was their 12th interview or whatever it was. And maybe you just had to settle and take what you could get at that point. But I do think there are some questions about that. Now, do I think that Drake Maye can run this system? Absolutely. And you know what I think would solve a lot of problems? And I don't know if this will happen or not happen. Get out there and run the damn ball. If you can get Ramondre Stevenson going, the first play against Carolina, not that you're going to get 11 yards every play, but if you can do that, that will take a lot of pressure off the five guys up front. That'll take a lot of pressure off of whoever the quarterback is. That and I know they've said they want to do that. Gerard has been quite open, right? A couple of weeks ago, he said we're going to lean on the running game. Like that's running game and defense is how we're going to play.
In
Now,
neon sign, we're going to run the.
right,
Everybody knows.
right. So please don't blitz us and come after the passer. We're going to run the ball. I would also say there, at least on the practice field, the run game has not been very good. There's been days where they look as equally inept run blocking as they do pass blocking. Now, the defensive front is good. We started with that. Even against the Eagles, this defensive front is good. So maybe that will actually be the one positive we can pull from August is that all this work for this offensive line against a good defensive front, when they get to the regular season, maybe it'll be like the kid who takes the little donut off the bat and he's like, oh, this feels much lighter now that there's no weight on here. That's the optimistic side of me trying to pull some things from this.
Let me try and pull one more optimistic thing out of you.
Okay.
I mean, I think the defense can keep them in games. You know, obviously it might resemble last year where the defense kept them in games and they scored like no points.
Right. Absolutely.
Do you see that same scenario? I mean, is the defense good enough too, even with Christian Barmore probably out for an indefinite, not probably, he is out indefinitely with blood clots, the Matthew Judon situation, on and on. I mean, I was impressed by how they played up front against the Eagles yesterday. I think cornerback outside of Gonzo was the one concern because AJ Brown torched them yesterday.
Yep. So it's funny because on one hand, people will be like, well, he's AJ Brown. He's really good. Like he's supposed to do that. And then the other hand, I would say, look at the schedule. You're going to face a lot of those guys, especially in the first month. You have, assuming, contract issues aside with everybody at that position, you have to play T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. You have to play Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. You have to play Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I think those are all in the first 5 weeks right there. So 3 of your first 5 games, you're facing elite combos of wide receivers. Your first question, I'm not as high on the defense as I think most people are. Philosophically, I don't think defense wins anymore at any level of football, high school, college. And
I'll just interject real quick.
Yep.
The Eagles Super Bowl against Kansas City a couple of years ago. The Eagles came in with the best defense, the most sacks. They were going to show Patrick Mahomes. Yep. They showed him all the way to runner-up.
Right. Right. No, it's true.
They still scored a ton of points. I mean, that's just how it is.
That is. And I go back to when I really, because I kind of thought this for a long time, because it's, defense wins championships. It doesn't. And Nick Saban actually, it might have been 10 or 12 years ago now, said it at one of his SEC media days where you don't win with defense anymore. And he started recruiting differently. And that's when you started seeing all these Alabama wide receivers and quarterbacks and running backs. And he realized it's an offensive game. It's an offensive world. And I'm not going to say there's never going to be one-off Baltimore Ravens type defenses that are just so good that they can, but I think it's few and very far between at this point. And then you get into, well, I don't really know what the Patriots defense is going to be because Christian Barmore may not be, the negative or the realistic, he might not play all year. I really have no idea. It's a medical issue, not a football issue. So Christian Barmore may not play all year. Best defensive player. Matthew Judon, best pass rusher, maybe arguably your best defensive player. Is he engaged? He seems to be when he wants to be. And will that continue? And how does that? I know Gerard called it a hiccup and a bad day, but the hiccup keeps going. We still have the hiccups here. I don't know where this is going to play out. And in the secondary, I think they're thin at corner no matter what, but Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones, are they going to be out there every day, or are they going to be missing time like they've been missing time in August? Because after Gonzalez, if those two aren't out there, Alex Austin and the Marco
Yeah,
Wilsons of the world, to me, they're going to get picked on. And here's a little thing that has evolved in my brain over the last few days, and you probably ahead of the curve on this because I feel like I had this epiphany that was idiotic. They play Christian Gonzalez on the right side almost all the time.
they
And
did. Yep.
if they're going to do that, to me, layman outside guy, it makes it easy for the other team to say, okay, I'm going to throw to the other side of the field where you have this journeyman, where, Alex Austin. I like my matchup of Brandon Ayuk on Alex Austin, and I can line up in that. And so that's
That's what
weird.
happened yesterday. That's what happened. They avoided Gonzalez. They went at Alex Austin, Marco Wilson, whoever the heck the the opposite
Right.
corner was. Uh, Jalen Hurts just he didn't even look to the left.
And you shouldn't, right?
Through
You
right,
shouldn't.
through right. Yeah.
Even if Gonzalez isn't as good as maybe we hope or think,
Mm.
there's still no reason to test him when you have somebody is not as good on the other side and they're not moving him around. You can come out, line up, you dictate what is happening formationally. So to answer your question, no, and the schedule is tougher this year. That's the other aspect, not just for the defense, but just in terms of the games themselves. There's not as many winnable journeyman backup quarterback, like just the Jets. You're going to probably face Aaron Rodgers twice instead of facing Zach Wilson. You beat him last year. The Colts, if Anthony Richardson is as good as some people believe, that's an upgrade over Gardner Minshew. So,
Even
no,
though
I
Minshew
don't.
beat them last year.
Yes, no, I know. But I don't think this defense is good enough or deep enough to just flat out win football games. They'll be competitive at stretches because I think they're talented, and I think the schematic continuity and coaching continuity probably benefits them early in the year, but I don't think they're good enough to win.
So we've come full circle now because with all that said, as you surmised, 0 wins is in play.
Yeah.
I think they'll win a few games, but given all the variables, it is. And, one being, as you said, the schedule is tough. I mean, oh my goodness. Here's what I think the best thing you can hope for the Patriots. This is just me, that, they're going to go through their rough patches, but you have to hope by at some point, again, new coaching staff, new this, new that, offensive line, not great, that maybe some point after the midway point, it clicks in and they show progress and they're much more competitive in the games. I don't think wins and losses are going to be the measure. I think the eye test is going to be the measure. What you see on the field. Does Drake Maye even play? How does he look? Does he look all of a sudden good at the end of the season? Just something to carry momentum into the next season. I mean, we've seen it when Parcells came here and took over. The team got better late in the year and carried that. We saw that when Bill Belichick first got here. They weren't that great to start, but they built toward the end and they had some meaningful wins toward the end of the season. And that's what generated hope going forward.
Absolutely.
That's how I see it.
You can't be crushed by this season. Like that, I think, is the worst case scenario is Gerard Mayo, Drake Maye, Alex Van Pelt get crushed by this season. And what I mean by that is if you a lot of people have circled that Seattle home opener as an early winnable game. That'd be nice to get one under your belt, because if you don't, and now all of a sudden you start piling up 5
Snowball
losses.
starts rolling.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that pressure, I have this, I say it all the time with Fitzy on Six Rings, that losing is undefeated. When losing builds up, it breaks everyone. Quarterbacks, coaches that you think are stoic. I think Bill was worn down by losing in recent years. And so you have to try to avoid that. And I agree with you totally. As down as I am on this team this year to say 0 wins is in play, I think in a 2-year window here, there's plenty of reason for optimism. assuming Drake Maye can play. If you have your quarterback, because if you lose as many games as I think they're going to, I think you're going to be in place to draft. Everybody talks about this Campbell kid out of LSU is like the next great thing at left tackle. He squats 1 billion pounds. He doesn't give up sacks, that whole thing. Okay, I'll take him with the 3rd pick in the draft. Pencil him in. I have $150 million in cap space to throw at the wide receiver of the day who hates his contract somewhere else, but might be the next A.J. Brown or Stephon Diggs. And if you add those two pieces, those two singular pieces in the next 8, 10, 12 months, I think this time next year, we could be having a very different conversation about how good Javon Baker and Jalen Polk look behind T. Higgins. Like, wow, we have a real wide receiver depth chart. Kendrick Bourne's our number 4 receiver. We might have the best number 4 receiver in the NFL kind of thing. But it's that top heavy part that they're missing that I do think is attainable. But again, all of that has to be foundationally built upon goodwill late in the year. And I agree with you. It doesn't mean wins. I don't need 5 wins in November and December. Just when I do the 6 Rings post-game show with Fitzy on those games in December, and I want to say, oh, that throw that Drake Maye made to Jalen Polk in the 4th quarter, that was awesome. Wow. I can't wait to see more of that in the coming years. And if you have some of that, because I also think the sneaky thing is they have, you mentioned whether it's the Parcells teams or the Belichick teams, if you add what I'm looking to add, and I know those are still questions. Elliott Wolf, you need to nail it. Sign the right receiver, draft the right tackle, but that will make Mike Onwenu look better for the next 3 years. That will make Ramondre Stevenson look better. Kyle Duggar will look better. You know, the guys that are here that you have signed to be part of the transitional era here, I think will look better. So it's so weird because I'm as negative as anybody about this August and this season, but I feel like I'm actually more optimistic for the long term for the 2025 and the 2026 than some people are. I'm in this weird, I guess I'm Glenn Ordway kind of straddling the fence here with this team.
Well, it'll be interesting no matter which way it goes. It always is. And Andy, thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. And
my pleasure. For you, I mean, we have to get into this. I don't think people properly acknowledge your legendary status on the Patriots beat and in Boston sports media. And I think people, like, I said this to you when you were on WEEI with us one day, and I think people are like, oh, you're fluffing her up. No. Like, people should know by now, I don't really fluff up. I'm not good at faking it. And to me, people need to go back and look at that clip when Gronk goes, Karen, like, and I always say this for young reporters, and this is not something I'm great at. Watch Karen and what she's doing. When there is a group session in one end of the locker room, usually Karen is doing a one-on-one with Randy Moss at the other end of the locker room. And that's why she's better than most of y'all. Don't follow the pack, follow Karen, because she does it the right way. And I just wanted, I needed to say that. I needed to get that off my chest.
I just get claustrophobic in packs. That's that's it. I'm not that good.
Well, whatever. It works.
Well, thank you, Andy. Much appreciated. And I guess we will see what happens Thursday night, how much Drake Maye plays or doesn't play. But it's always good fodder for discussion.
And I'm not shaving until they win a game, so I may look like Yukon Cornelius by Christmas. So
I love it. Thank you, Andy.
My pleasure. Anytime.